morning, church. Welcome back to another coffee and conversation. Why don't you find yourself a nice place to sit down, maybe out in the sun if it's good weather today, and grab your Bible, grab a nice beverage, coffee, tea, water. Why don't you even grab yourself a little bit of food to eat while you're watching this video? Maybe a nice pastry, maybe some fruit. You've heard the phrase, you are what you eat. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my family had a vegetable garden in our backyard. And I loved to pull out from that garden fresh carrots and eat them. And I would just pull out carrots whenever they were ready and eat them all the time. So much so that at that time, my skin started taking on an orangish hue. Kind of giving some validity to the phrase, you are what you eat. I was becoming a carrot because I was eating so many carrots. Okay, well maybe that phrase isn't perfectly scientifically accurate, but here's a little bit different one. You are like what you worship. You are like what you worship. Let's turn together to Psalm 115. Book of Psalm, chapter 115, and look at this idea of you are like what you worship. So Psalm 115, first 3 verses. Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name give glory, because of your loving kindness, because of your truth. Why should the nations say, where now is their God? But our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. The psalm is saying from the beginning, God is different. God is outside of our control, outside of our ability to fully understand who he is or why he does what he does. He's still loving kind and he still is full of truth, and we're to give him all glory, but he's in heaven. He does whatever he pleases. What about their gods? What about their idols? Because the psalm is giving us a little comparison here between our God and the idols that other nations worship. So verses 4 through 7. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of man's hands. They have mouths, but they cannot speak. They have eyes, but they cannot see. They have ears, but they cannot hear. They have noses, but they cannot smell. They have hands, but they cannot feel. They have feet, but they cannot walk. They cannot make a sound with their throat. The psalmist is giving us a clear image of idols in other nearby nations. Idols that are worshipped by other nations. They're made by man's hands, and so even though they have carved hands and mouths and arms and feet and legs and ears and all of these things, those things don't actually function. They don't have any power behind them. And here's the key verse. Psalm 115, verse 8. Those who make them will become like them, everyone who trusts in them. See, if we were like them and we worshiped these false man-made idols, we would start to become like that. There's other verses in the Bible that talk about the Israelites as having stiff necks, as having ears but not able to hear, of having eyes but not able to see God's truth. And it's because when we start worshiping idols, we start to become like them. And the psalmist is clear, these idols have no power. They have mouths, but they can't speak. They have eyes, but they cannot see. Okay, so in our culture, we probably don't have many physical carved idols. That's maybe not what we're struggling with, but we have other man-made idols. Maybe we're searching after success and money and fortune and fame. Maybe we're seeking after the recognition and applause of man. But those things, when they become idols, when we make them, when we trust and put our trust and our faith and our hope in them, we become powerless. We're no longer able to see where God is moving. We're no longer able to hear from God. We're no longer able to speak for and on behalf of God. But that's their idols. So what does the psalm then say? What's the alternative here? flip over to verse 9, the very next verse. O Israel, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. We can place our worship and our trust in God who is in heaven, who is championing for us, who is working things out for our good. But if we worship him, if we put our trust and our hope in him, then we will be brought to life the way he has created us to be. We'll be able to see, we'll be able to hear, we'll be able to speak for him. And so, church, I just want to encourage you with this word from Psalm 115. We become like what we worship. So are we worshiping idols? Are we pursuing and putting success and fortune and fame as the center of our lives? Or are we directing our focus, our worship, our trust and our hope in the God who is in heaven?